Okay, so we move on to finite difference time domain method. So what is the full form of finite difference time domain method? Just before that, you have been studying electromagnetic field theory for many years now, and you want to visualize the wave. No? You have never seen the wave; it's invisible. No? But let's say you want to observe the wave, what is behavior in real time with visualization. Then you have to write codes. Waves you cannot see, but if you write EM codes, electromagnetic codes, simulation codes, then you can observe the behavior of the wave. And finite difference time domain method is one method which will actually let you visualize the wave. So I'll actually run some of the programs here in the class itself, show you how the wave behavior is, how is the wave propagation, what happens to the wave when it hits a wall, what happens to the wave, how does antenna radiation looks like, those kind of things. We can do all those kind of wave visualization using finite difference time domain method. That's not the only thing also. This is a time domain method. Once you take the Fourier transform, you can also get all the device parameter. Let's say antenna, you want to get S11 parameters. You have the results in time domain. Finite difference time domain method is a time domain method. So you have all the results will be in time domain, but you take the Fourier transform, you should be able to get the frequency domain parameters also. And it's very so it's very easy to start writing finite difference time domain method codes because, as I already told you before also, MOM has a difficulty for you because of the Green's function. Every problem you want to solve, you need to first find the Green's function, and finding the Green's function, you need to have a lot of expertise in electromagnetics. Okay, so FTDD is not like that. FTDD is quite easy, and FTDD in the FTDD, you have four Maxwell equations. First and second Maxwell equations are divergence equations for electric field and magnetic field. But the third and fourth equations, Maxwell curl equations, we usually call it Maxwell curl equations, third and fourth, curl of magnetic field and curl of electric field. So these equations, you look at this equation, they actually have both space and time dependence. When you take the curl, these are all space derivatives here, left hand side. But you look at the right hand side, you have del by del t is a time derivative. So time derivative. Finite difference time domain method is a time derivative method, time dependent method, and it's a here you can actually apply finite difference time domain method FTDD here because you have a function which is field which is varying with respect to time in both equations. So you can use finite difference time domain method. How do you do it? No, that's what. How do you do finite difference time domain method on these two equations? One is Maxwell curl equation for magnetic field, and another is Maxwell curl equation for the electric field. So usually it's very simple actually. You just replace the derivatives by central finite difference approximation. So what do I mean by central finite difference approximation is basically, let's say I want to find the derivative of a function f at x naught, that is dy dx of f of x naught. We usually denote it by f dash x naught. You can actually find it by using that central finite difference approximation. And you must have come across this kind of approximation when you learn what is derivative. Derivative of function f at x is basically fx plus x minus fx divided by delta x. That was the usual derivative definition when limit x tends to 0. That was the definition you usually learn in your plus 2. But here, instead of using one-sided approximation, we'll use the two-sided approximation. We also call it central finite difference approximation. Here, instead of just calculating it in one side, we'll calculate the function in two sides of the x naught. So we'll calculate the function at x naught plus delta x by 2 and minus f of x naught minus delta x by 2 divided by delta x. So the interval is delta x, but we calculate the function at x naught plus delta x by 2, and we also calculate function at x naught minus delta x by 2, then you find out the derivative. So this is actually better than your +2 definition of the derivative, is because the accuracy is better. So the amount of error you get from this approximation is much lesser than what you have learned in your +2. So this is the central finite difference approximation of the derivative. So we have derivative in left hand side, also right hand side also. Left hand side is space derivative, and we have right hand side is a time derivative. We can use this central finite difference approximation, and we can find out what is the derivative both in time and space. That is all we do in finite difference time domain method. Just before that, let us consider a source-free region like your free space. So you cannot have any charge density in free space. J becomes 0. Your Maxwell equations, curl equations, you can represent it in this form now. Dou E by dou T is equal to 1 by epsilon 0, epsilon r, curl of x. I have just transferred the time derivative in the left hand side and the space derivative in the right hand side. So similarly, you can also do for the next Maxwell curl equation, del by del T of magnetic field is equal to minus 1 by mu naught mu r curl of it. So now looking at this equation, this is a vector equation. So electric field will have 3 components, magnetic field will have 3 components. So the total equation will be 6. But solving 6 equation is very cumbersome. So we'll start with the simplification first. So what are the 6 equations? 3 equations for the first Maxwell curl equation. You'll have dou E by dou E x by dou T, dou E y by dou T, dou E z by dou T, and right hand side, this you can calculate from the curl of h. Similarly, you'll have 3 equations from dou h by dou T is equal to 1 by mu naught mu r curl of E, negative of that. So you will have dou x by dou T, dou xy by dou T, and dou xz by dou T. So you'll have another 3 equations, total 6 equations. Solving 6 equations by using central finite difference approximation. You'll do it later on, but now at the starting it will be too much. So we'll start with the 1D FDTD. We can make a major simplification. We will go step by step, start with the simplest one, then go for a more complex one. The first case we'll consider is the 1D FDTD. In that case, we consider a linearly polarized wave. Linearly polarized wave will be your electric field will be pointing in only one direction. You consider a simple case, linearly polarized wave along the x-axis. So electric field will have only Ex component, Ey and Ez will become 0. Assume that wave is propagating along the z-axis. It's not propagating in x and y axis, but it's propagating only in one line along the z-axis. In that case, your derivative with respect to x, dou by dou x will become 0, dou by dou y will also become 0. So now, because of this modification you have here, Ey is 0, Ez is 0, dou by dou x is 0, dou by dou y is 0. You have 6 equations. So dou by dou y is 0. All these terms will become 0 because Ey is 0. So this equation would become 0 here. So we don't have any time dependence. We don't need to worry about this equation. Even this equation is also not there because we have Ez is equal to 0, Ex is existing, and again, time derivative with respect to dou by dou y is 0, dou by dou x is also 0. We have wave propagation only along the z-axis, so only this term will be non-zero. Similarly, looking at the right-hand side, also we have Ex, then magnetic field and electric field are always perpendicular in the far field for plane waves. Then we'll have only xy. So then this is also 0 because Hx is 0, Hz is 0. Again, dou by dou x is 0 because we have wave propagation only along the z direction. So dou by dou z would be non-zero. So we have a very simple equation, 2 equations. Let us write it down. This is one equation, this is another equation. So it is a major simplification. We just have 2 equations. And this is called 1D FDTD. This is called 1D FDTD. And what do we do in FDTD? We actually do central finite difference approximation of this derivative with respect to time and space. That's all we do in FDTD. We do discretization in both space and time. So when we do central finite difference approximation of this time derivative and space derivative, basically what we are doing is we are doing discretization in space and time. And by now, I think you know what is discretization. No? Discretization is you subsection the solution space into small subsections. You can, so here it's we are doing discretization both for space and time. So for the space discretization, you subsection the whole solution space into small subsections of length with delta z here. And we assume this is first subsection, second, third, and so on. And the running index for the space discretization is k. K can take value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Similarly, you also do discretization in time. So the step size times step size is delta t. The running index is n. N is going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10, and so on. So don't forget, it's not necessary running index for space discretization is k. But here, when we write the equation, don't forget k is for the space discretization, n is for the time discretization. You can have any other variable here, but we'll use k as a running index for the space discretization and n as the running index for time discretization. So how do we actually decide the size of delta z and delta t? They are not independent also. Once you decide delta z, delta t can be actually found out by one criteria which we call Courant stability criteria. If you follow that Courant stability criteria, your FDTD program will not be diverging. It will be stable. It will not be unstable. So we'll discuss that most probably today. So now I actually do the discretization delta z. Delta z is usually taken as 10 to 15 per wavelength. So as a rule of thumb, delta z size should be at least 10 to 15 per wavelength. Let's say you want to subsection a length of lambda, then you should have at least 10 to 15 subsections. So that's a rule of thumb. Once you decide delta z, then you can decide delta t. They are not independent by using a criteria called Courant stability criteria. And if you follow that Courant stability criteria, your FDD solution or FDD program will be stable. Otherwise, it will be unstable. I will show you programs in which we define the Courant stability criteria, then your FDD results would be diverging. It won't become stable. Okay, so let us try to discretize this equation here. This equation here is the first equation we want to discretize for 1D FDTD. We have to discretize this over time also. We have to discretize this over space also. So time discretization, what was the running index? Running index was n. Space discretization, what was the running index? Running index was k. So your Ex and Hy are dependent on both space and time. That's why we have a partial derivative here. This is a partial derivative with respect to time, this is a partial derivative with respect to z. But if you look at this function itself, Ex and Hy, they are both dependent on space and time. What is the running index for space? Space is k, running index for time is n. Now I want to do the derivative with respect to time. So Ex, I want to do partial derivative with respect to time. I use central finite difference approximation. So then what do? I calculate Ex at kth location at time n plus half and n minus half divided by delta t. This becomes a time derivative. Delta del by del t of Ex. Right hand side, what do I have? I have minus 1 by epsilon 0 epsilon r. Then we have Hy k plus half n minus Hy k minus half n divided by delta z. See, in real situation, what we are doing is we should actually have k delta z here, and n plus half delta t and minus half delta t here. That's what we are doing. We are calculating Ex at n plus half delta t at k delta z. And Ex at n minus half delta t at k delta z, and we divide it by delta t, it becomes a partial derivative. Similarly, we are calculating Hy at k plus half delta z and delta t minus Hy, k minus half delta z and delta t divided by delta z. This is what we are doing. But how many times we will write delta z and delta t? And later on, we'll convert this into computer program. So there, delta Z and delta T cannot be there. So that's why I have emphasized you at the beginning itself. We have two running index, one for the space, which is K, and another is for the time, which is N. Okay, so this is how you do the discretization. Let's go to the second equation. Here also you do the same thing. You do the central finite difference approximation of this time derivative and space derivative. The only thing you need to worry is you have to increment all the time in space step size by half. So here you are calculating at k, you will calculate here at k plus half. Here you are calculating n plus half, you will calculate at n plus 1. It was n minus half, it will be n here. So you need to change the time and space steps by half so that you are not calculating the field at same location. So I will show you how you are doing the calculation. It's actually called leapfrog manner, just like how do a frog jump out of a well, no? It will jump step by step. So just like that, we call it leapfrog manner. So you calculate the electric field, then you calculate the magnetic field at one time and one specific location. You calculate the electric field and magnetic field. Then you calculate the magnetic field in the next time and space step. Then again you calculate the electric field and so on. So you do not calculate electric field and magnetic field at the same location. You calculate the electric field and magnetic field at different locations, one by one. First electric field, then magnetic field, then magnetic field, then electric field, so on. Electric field, magnetic field, and so on. So that can be clearly seen also. We'll show you in the next slide also. So now let's say if I want to calculate Ex at n plus half, then I need to know what is the value of Ex at n minus half. I also need to know magnetic field in the neighborhood and at the previous time instant. So when I calculate this electric field at n plus half at the latest time instant, I want to have the knowledge of the electric field in the previous time instant, and I also want to have the knowledge of the magnetic field in the neighborhood, because we are calculating Ex at k, but Hy plus k plus half and k minus half is neighborhood, no? Near to the k, and at the previous time instant. So I need to have the value of the previous time instant of electric field and magnetic field. So I cannot calculate them at the same time. I will be keep on doing the update thing. So this is called update equation. So when I calculate electric field at this location, at this latest time instant, I need to know the electric field of the previous time instant and magnetic field of the neighborhood of the previous time instant. So I need to have all these values. So one by one, I need to calculate. So once I have electric field, I can calculate magnetic field from this expression. So this is called the update equation. So this diagram will clearly show you what is going on. Let's say I want to calculate Ex at n plus half at the kth velocity. This is a discretization over the space. Discretization over the space. Discretization over the space. So space discretization k minus half, k minus 1, k, then k plus 1, and so on, k plus 2. Again, this is also discretization over space of the Ex at n plus half, Hy at n, Ex at n minus half. So you look at the time running index. It was n minus half, then n plus half. So these are at different time instant. This is at n minus half, this is at n, and this is at n plus half. So if I want to find Ex at n plus half, I need to know the value of Hy and Ex at n minus half. I need to know the Ex at n plus half at the same location. The same location, k and k. But I also need to know the magnetic field of the previous time instant at different locations in the neighborhood, k minus half and k plus half. So I need this value, and this value to get this. So after that, I will also need, see, to calculate this, I need all these values. Similarly, next one will also need all these values. So you have to keep on calculating the electric field, updating it. At one particular time instant, you find, next particular time instant, you find it, another, and so on. So first you find electric field, then you will find magnetic field. See, that's what you are seeing here also. You have electric field calculation, then magnetic field, then electric field. So this is done in a leapfrog manner. So that's what I was saying, how this frog jump out of the well. It will have to jump up step by step. It cannot jump at one time. So this is how you implement FTDD in the 1D case. Okay, so there are some numerical errors. You look at the electric field and magnetic field, which is a larger quantity. Which is a larger quantity? Usually your electric field and magnetic field, your electric field is much larger than the magnetic field. So the ratio of electric field and magnetic field in the far field of an antenna, or you are in the far field of any kind of source, is 125. There's a lot of difference, around 377 difference. So let's say your electric field is 377, your magnetic field will be just 1. So there's a lot of difference in the magnitude of electric field and magnetic field. So now when you have this equation here, you have electric field also, you have magnetic field also. This contribution would be very small from the magnetic field, but electric field is large. And when you have such kind of equation in the MATLAB, MATLAB will round off everything. So you may not even get any kind of contribution from magnetic field because this is a very large number. So MATLAB may actually ignore all these things. So you write it to code and everything is fine, but then because of this numerical error you have here, you won't be able to get a proper observation of the wave. You get a completely wrong result. So we need to make some kind of change in the variable so that this and this, they are of same order of amplitude. So that's why we are making a substitution here. We actually introduce a new variable ex dash, which is actually square root of epsilon by mu ex. So in that case, ex dash will have same order of magnitude with reference to the magnetic field. So then, because of that new substitution, you can simplify the equation. Ex dash kn plus half is equal to ex dash kn minus half plus 1 by square root of mu epsilon delta t by delta z h by k minus half n minus h by k plus half n. So this ex dash and ex dash, they would be of same order of amplitude with respect to xy here. So the error, numerical error, will be minimized. Later on, you'll see that when you apply Courant stability criteria, this will become simply half here. Similarly, you can also write the equation of the equation for xy at k plus half n plus 1 is equal to xy at k plus half n. This will turn out to be 0.5 later on. Then ex dash kn plus half minus ex dash k plus 1 n plus half. So, by the way, what is this Courant stability criteria? Why do we need this criteria? To have a stable FTDD program. So, Courant stability criteria, basically, if you consider isotropic medium, an EM wave usually moves from one cell to another cell. At what time? Delta T is actually delta Z by B phase. B phase, let's say, is free space than speed of the light. So delta Z and delta T are independent. Once I have delta Z, if I know this phase velocity, I can find out what is delta T. There's some relation here. It's not independent. So that's what I was saying at the beginning. Delta T and delta Z are not independent. Once I have the distance, I can just divide it by the phase velocity or speed, then I can find out how much time it takes for the wave to reach to that distance. Or let's say how much time wave will take to move over that distance. So let's say your EM waves cannot move to a space cell during a time step. See, it cannot move more than a space cell. So wave has a speed, it will take finite time to reach to the next cell. But let's say, since you are doing simulation, you take delta T is slightly larger than that. In that case, your wave would have already gone to the next cell. And then your physically it's not possible. So that's why FTDD will start diverging. When you take delta G greater than delta Z by B phase, distance moved by the EM wave over the time interval delta T will be more than delta Z. So in that case, your EM wave will leap out the next node or cell, and FTDD will not be causally interconnected, and it leads to instability. We'll show you simulation what result we will get after taking delta T greater than delta Z by B phase. But let's see how much wave will take to go from one cell to another cell. So this is one cell. This is a 2D discretization. So you have a 2D solution space. You subsection it is small cell. This is one cell. How long wave will take to propagate from one cell to another cell? Okay, so this step size is delta x, this step size is delta y. This is your x-axis, this is your y-axis. This is a 2D discretization of your solution space. So now if your wave is propagating along theta is equal to 0 degree, along this horizontal direction, so from one cell to another cell, wave will take how much time? Or let's say if your wave is propagating along the diagonal direction, from one cell to another cell, how much is the distance? This distance is obviously diagonal, so delta by root 2, but this distance is only delta. So to move from one cell to another cell along the diagonal direction, you cannot just say, we have to move only in horizontal direction. So you cannot command the wave. Wave can move in any direction, any arbitrary direction. It can also go in diagonal direction. Also, it can go in horizontal or vertical direction. For the horizontal and vertical direction, if you assume this delta x and delta y is equal, the distance wave has to move to the next cell is delta. But if you consider this diagonal propagation, then distance the wave has to move to reach to the next cell is delta by root 2. So in that case, if you consider 3D case, so 3D case I cannot draw it on this 2D plane. Let's say you consider bulk, you consider a bulk, then you have to do volume discretization. It will no longer be, this square discretization here, it will be cube. In the cube, how much is the length along the diagonal direction? It will be delta by root 3. So wave has to move at least a distance of delta by root 3 to reach to the next cell. So now in that case, delta t should be distance divided by the b phase. Distance for the diagonal case, you have 2D cases delta by root 2 b phase. And for the 3D case, it is delta z by root 3 divided by the b phase. So now usually what people take is delta t is delta z by 2b phase. Why? Because root 2 is 1.414, root 3 is 1.73121, and 2 is greater than that. But let's say if I take a delta t, which is greater than root 2, also greater than root 3, also greater than 1 also, wave will never go to the next cell. So FTDD will become stable. But let's say if you, instead of having a cube as a unit cell for discretization of your bulk simulation space or solution space, if we have a cuboid will have different dimensions along x and y and z. So in that case, your cuboid is taken as a discretization of your volume solution space. In that case, you can simply take minimum of delta x, delta y, or delta z divided by 2b phase. This is called the coherent stability criteria. If you use this, your FTDD program will not diverge. For the 1D case, I have told you at the beginning, the constant in front of the magnetic field was 1 by square root of mu epsilon delta t by delta z. What is delta t by delta z? Delta t by delta z. What is delta t? Delta t is delta z by 2b phase. So finally, turns out to be simply half. That this term here in front of the magnetic field will become simply half. So let us go back to the equation. At the update equation, we use the change variable of Ex as Es dash so that numerical error is minimized. So Ex dash at Kn plus half is equal to Ex dash at Kn minus half. This is for previous times then. Plus that constant you have here, it turns out to be half here when you apply the coherent stability criteria, Hyk minus half n minus Hyk plus half n. Similarly, you also have the update equation for Hy at k plus half at n plus 1 is equal to Hy at k plus half n plus half Ex dash Kn plus half minus Ex dash k plus 1 n plus half. How do I convert this into a computer update equation for free space where epsilon r k is equal to 1? This is the dielectric constant for free space. Epsilon r is 1. So what is the epsilon for free space? Is epsilon 0, epsilon r is 1. So we can write the computer update equation simply as Exk is equal to Exk. So you put this in a loop. You put this in a loop, k going from let's say 1 to capital N. So in that case, exk would equal to exk plus 0.5 divided by epsilon rk for free space is 1, xyk minus 1 minus xyk. So all this half variable has been replaced by some integer variables, because in the computer update equation we cannot have any half here. All the running index should be integers here. Xyk is equal to xyk plus 0.5 into exk minus exk plus 1. So you put this in a loop, solve it, you will be able to plot it, and you will be able to observe the E plane, what is that? Linear polarized wave, polarized along the x-axis. How is the behavior of a wave which is polarized along the x-axis propagating along the z-axis by doing this simulation. So k plus and k half are replaced by k and k minus 1, because we cannot have half here in the index for the ex and ey variable. Similarly, n plus half and n minus half. Okay, so we can do simulation of Gaussian pulse propagation in free space. We can also do simulation of Gaussian pulse hitting a dielectric medium. Let me briefly discuss this. How is Gaussian pulse hitting a dielectric medium looks like theoretically. First, we'll do simulation and see whether we are getting a proper result here. So if you have done a course on AM theory in your undergraduate studies, you know what is the reflection coefficient and the transmission coefficient. This is transmission coefficient, this is reflection coefficient. Reflection coefficient is defined as eta 2 minus eta 1 by eta 2 plus eta 1. Eta 2 and eta 1 are the wave impedance for the region 2 and region 1. I want to find reflection at the media interface between two medium 1 and medium 2. This is the wave impedance for medium 2, and this is wave impedance for medium 1. Eta 2 minus eta 1 divided by eta 2 plus eta 1. So anyway, if you consider this a dielectric medium, then you can simplify it square root of epsilon, because mu eta is square root of mu by epsilon. So it becomes square root of epsilon 1 minus epsilon 2 divided by square root of epsilon 1 plus epsilon 2. Once I have gamma, I can find tau. Tau is 1 plus gamma. Then it can also express in terms of epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 as 2 square root of epsilon 1 divided by square root of epsilon 1 plus epsilon 2. So this is a simulation in space. In the first case, we have an infinite free space. We are sending a source, Gaussian pulse source from the origin, and it was moving out in all directions. But now, let's say if I have a dielectric layer starting from K start. K start can be any 100 or 200. Starting from here, I have a dielectric layer. So in the FDTD update equation, this term here, this epsilon RK will only change in this region. So your equation still works for this region also, for this region also. Only thing is that your epsilon RK here would be 1, epsilon RK should be equal to 1 here in the dielectric medium. So the program is very simple. In the program, you just, as soon as K becomes K start, then you just replace epsilon R is equal to epsilon, this ERK is equal to epsilon R. Let's say epsilon R is 4, just replace ERK by 4. Up till here, ERK was 1. So the program is very simple. Even if you have different medium, different structures, you don't need to worry. So let's say epsilon 1 is 1, epsilon 2 is 4, gamma would become minus 1 by 3. Gamma means 1 by 3, means any signal which is going inside that, see, any signal with an amplitude of 1 you are sending here, 1 by 3 of them will be reflected back with a negative sign. So if your pill was pointing along this, it will be pointing along this direction. That's why you have a negative sign here. And 2 by 3 of the wave will be propagating inside this region. So if I have epsilon R is equal to 1 here, epsilon R is equal to 4 here, any wave or amplitude 1 is hitting this, 1 by 3 of them will be reflected, 2 by 3 of them will be transmitted, and the reflected wave polarization would be, if it is in positive, let's say x direction, it will be in negative z x direction. We can do the simulation and see now. I think I should wind up here.